Welcome to JDM Legends, presented by Turn 14 Distribution, with the black car way getting wrapped. Today we get back to work on my baby here, the red 6-speed. It's going to be a weird one today because we're going to have to explain to you why we're putting the engine back in this dirty engine bay. But before I do that, I want to thank Turn 14 Distribution right off the top, because let's say you want to build a 2JZ project and you have some fabrication that needs to happen. Well, guess what? They have all the Vibrant parts in the world on their shelf in their 3 massive warehouses across the USA. They can drop ship it to you within a couple of days, or should I say ship it to your performance shop of choice, who of course have an account with Turn 14. So I think that's maybe leading into this whole idea that Pete and I came up with which was, how do we fabricate the hot side and some of the charge piping on this project without me having any fabrication skill? It's my project. I want to do a lot of the work on this car. And no offense to Pete, who does excellent fabrication work himself, as you would have seen, say, on the Evo 6, where he built that whole turbo system out.
Let's just call it good. We wouldn't call it excellent. Well,
good. I mean, for a DIY guy who doesn't do this as his daily profession, fabricating parts, you do really good work. However, there are people in this world who do better fabrication work than you, and that's because they're pros and they've been doing it for a long time, including our buddies Aaron and Greg at Vibrant Performance, who build beautiful stuff and of course have the complete Vibrant catalog at their disposal. And they don't also get to work on like cool JDM cars like this that often because they're busy there developing parts, doing R&D for Vibrant. So when I pitched them on the idea of them doing the fabrication work on this project at their R&D center in Mississauga, Ontario here, they were into it because it was kind of like a fun way for them to flex their fabrication skills a bit and show you guys what's really possible in the hands of pros with all of the cool tools and fabrication components that they have in their catalog. So that means this car is going to go to Vibrant Performance very soon. In fact, we booked it a little bit tight, didn't we, PT? We got a little behind on the black Supra. We didn't have time to clean the engine bay and clean that engine up. It needs a full refresh. It needs the valve seals done. It needs all the dirt and cleaned off of it. It needs a clutch swapped. It needs a bunch of stuff done to it. And we frankly don't have time to do that before this car has to go on the trailer and go to Vibrant Performance, which means sadly, we're gonna dump that greasy engine back in the engine bay and just leave it as is so that it's in the hole and Vibrant can then do their work over the next couple of weeks. Then it'll come back here and we'll pull it out again, which isn't actually that difficult a job in this car, and then clean it all up and do all the valve seals and do all that kind of stuff. So unfortunately, a little extra work for Pete and I, but it is what it is, and it does mean that we have the pros at Vibrant gonna build us a really cool turbo setup here, so super stoked on that. Not that stoked on putting the motor back in here, but let's get to it. It's amazing how easy it is to install an engine when there's nothing attached to it and everything's cleared out of the engine bay. That went in there very quick, which was nice because there's still lots left to do. And you can see that Pete threw on the intake manifold. Obviously we need the throttle body to be in the position where it's gonna be so that when the guys at Vibrant build the charge pipes, they know where to build it to. And the same is gonna have to happen on the hot side over here. We're gonna have to put all this stuff in here. So again, they know how to route everything, including plumbing and so on. So you need everything to be where it's going to be because you don't want to run into any clearance problems after the fact. So we're going to start, I think, by dropping the rad in here along with the shroud and the mechanical fan, and then start to build stuff out from there. And I don't know about this, PT, this red cover on top. It's like that burgundy-ish red off of the black car on this
just picture
brighter red.
What if it was red?
It's not good. It's not good. That's got to all get fixed. But keep in mind, this is all coming out again. This is all gonna get refreshed. We figured now's a good time to give you a quick side-by-side comparison of the OE radiator versus our Koyo rad. which uses their R series or their R core, which is a 53 millimeter thick core, which you can see is quite a bit thicker than the factory one, although the factory rad is actually pretty beefy and actually very heavy. It's heavier than this all aluminum coil rad one. I guess maybe it's, you know, slightly more primitive in its construction, and it does have these plastic end tanks, which, as we know, are prone to failing over time. This one has been replaced recently, so this thing is basically brand new, but we are going to gain a bunch of extra capacity and efficiency by going with the coil rad R core.
Well, DP, I thought I was being smart by ordering you up some proper Samco sport hoses for the Supra, because we all know these are so much better than OEM. However, I kind of screwed up. As you can see, if you guys are Supra guys, you'll know this is not the right upper coolant hose. This is for an MK3 Supra. I don't know how I screwed that up, but I did, which is not great. And you can see this one would almost work. It's close, it's very, very close, but it just doesn't fit, unfortunately. So we're gonna have to go back to a stock one up here. I actually tried to contact Samco to see if they had a MK4 Supra ones in stock, and unfortunately they do not. They are pretty backlogged right now. I think he said it was like 3 to 4 months. So, but I'm hoping one of you guys out there knows of a shop that has MK4 Supra ones in stock kicking around. And if you do, please shoot me an email, because, you know, I feel bad for Dave. I screwed up. I'd like to get him a proper hose. Like, look at this one, does not look nowhere near as if we had a nice proper Samco one. However, on the bright side, I do think we will be able to use this one here because I have a bit of an idea for the lower coolant hose here. So you can see this is the stock setup, and it runs like as such. And our plan is actually to try to run the intercooler piping down and through this area here rather than up the conventional way, which goes into the fender here. It's a much longer path, and that will reduce the length. However, with this hose being here, it's going to present quite a problem. Now, the cool thing is I have a part left over off of the 2JZ M3, and this is actually an adapter that's going to rotate this housing completely downwards. Let me just pull this off here. So it's gonna rotate the housing down as such. I do have to remove these studs and replace them with bolts, but now what it's gonna present to us is an outlet that's gonna be straight down and this way, which I think I can use the Samco hose for. For most of you, this may be something that you're aware of, but I figured I would show this because, you know, sometimes people are learning, and if you've ever needed to remove a stud like this, for example, how do you do that? Well, simply put, you take two nuts and then you tighten them together on the stud, and then you can extract the stud here. So you'll see I've got these two together. So now what I'm gonna do is tighten the two nuts together on the stud. And now I should be able to loosen the stud out here, and there it goes. So it's a very simple procedure. Like I said, I'm sure most of you know how to do that, but I figured I'd show you anyways. And speaking of which, oh, I'm going the wrong way here. You may have noticed I am using a new set of wrenches here. These are Milwaukee's latest and greatest ratcheting combination wrenches, and they've got 144 teeth, so it makes a 2.5 degree throw every time. So you can see you can just move it just ever so slightly, which is really, really nice to have. But the neat feature that I actually really like is they have this max bite technology. So you can see it's not a flat plane anymore, and it's got little grooves in it, which actually they claim up to 25% more bite from these. You can see that here's the whole set. I just picked these guys up. So I'm pumped to start using them. I'll report back to you guys in a future episode on how well they work. But so far, as you guys just saw there, they were holding on to that nut very, very well. And would you look at that trimming that MK3 Samco hose has turned out to be perfect. It fits up so nice and snug up into here. It's not really rubbing against anything, which is really, really nice. And I do love the idea of clocking this coolant pipe this way, because now we're gonna have a ton of room for intercooler stuff. It's time to say goodbye to our factory Supra side mount intercooler. Look at this thing, DP.
Pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. We briefly showed it in a previous episode. And the more I look at it, like I'm impressed. For, you know, this car's a 95, like these came out in 93. To see this type of intercooler on a car back then was probably a rarity. And this one certainly has a lot of debris, a lot of bent fins, so it's seen better days. Feast your eyes on this 1100 horsepower intercooler from Freed Engineering. This sucker is 4.5 inches thick, measures 22 inches by 12, uses a vibrant core actually, which is pretty awesome since we are going with a lot of other vibrant components. It does have a 3-inch inlet and a massive 3.5-inch outlet. That's a little hardcore for us, I'm not gonna lie. Originally when I was scheming up the idea of like a big horsepower car, I figured this was the way to go. I still think it is. This is gonna be a great intercooler. I just think from a outlet standpoint, we might have to get vibrant to make some reducers here, but nevertheless, that is gonna be a conversation for later. But let's get this thing bolted up because I'm excited to see what it looks like. Now, in order to fit that intercooler in this space, you can see our biggest hurdle right now is this power steering line. And really what Freed recommends doing is just bending it backwards. There we go, look at that. Man, what an extremely well-fitting piece. The engineering on this has been very, very well thought out. That was like not even a 5-minute install. They have this great trick where they're using studs up here, and then with like a, I don't even know what you call these things. It's like a stud. It's almost like a long nut that you now screw a bolt into. So it's using an existing mounting point right there. Underneath here, they've got these beautiful brackets that I'm gonna bolt up now that hold this intercooler firmly in place. This is the best of the best, and I'm sure it's going to provide us with a proper cool charge as well.
Man, we are getting into all the sexy stuff here today, including this turbocharger from Garrett. This is a G35 900, and man, it is a sexy piece. If you know a lot about Garrett, then you know their G series is their top of the line turbos. It has all of their latest and greatest technologies built into it, including a more efficient aerodynamics on both the compressor and turbine side. I think on the compressor side, they're like 15 to 30% more efficient than their Gen 2 GTX series. And on the turbine side, they're like 15 to 20% more efficient as well. The turbine wheel is also made of a special alloy called MAR-M, which can handle heat up to like 1050 degrees Celsius. Obviously that 900 at the end of G35 900 means it's rated up to 900 horsepower. We're not aiming to make anywhere near that kind of horsepower. We're kind of thinking we may end up in the 650 range on race gas and less than that on pump gas, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But we figured we'd give you a quick look at the Spoolie Boy and what's really gonna be, you know, compressing all that air and making that 2J really live up to its legendary status. So let's get ready to bolt that on there by grabbing the manifold next. Man, look at this bazooka, everyone. This thing is a thing of beauty. This is a turbo manifold from Full Race, who are longtime friends of ours. And they build some seriously impressive tubular manifolds that are all robotically TIG welded. Flanges are all machined perfectly flat, and you can see this one has this black ceramic coating on it, which I believe is rated to 2000 degrees Fahrenheit. They're very serious about horsepower, and as you can see, this one has a divided or twin scroll housing on it, which means you've got a wastegate on each side. And really the advantage of a divided setup like this is that it lets you take advantage of the exhaust gas pulses and get quicker spool up. So that's really the advantage of having a twin scroll. But it does add some added plumbing because now you've got two wastegates, and some cost because you've got two wastegates. So there are pros and cons to it. But if you want the ultimate in spool and response, that this is probably the way to go.
Man, this Full Race manifold is looking mighty fine in here, and you will notice that I have a tile wastegate bolted up. This is their 44 millimeter MVR, which is a motorsport grade wastegate, and these are ideal for high heat applications, road racing. Rotary guys love these. And they're also really good in an area that doesn't have a lot of air coming to it. So all in all, you can see like this is a very beefy piece up here. It's got some fins built into it to make sure that it can withstand the heat. And even if at that point you're still not confident enough, you can run water to them. So this is also water cooled. I really like that they have multiple ports for your airline. So if you put this in here and then usually you have to clock this and figure it out, but with this thing, you have so many options with the ports that you can put them anywhere you want. These are also made in the USA, which is a fabulous thing. So I'm gonna get to bolting this on and then we can get the turbo on here and kind of examine things because it's starting to look kind of crazy.
Man, look at that, everyone. That is what we call sexually explicit content around here. And I have to admit, I am slightly aroused, but there are a few challenges here, aren't there, Pete? This manifold is big, and the way it positions the wastegates, especially this front wastegate, is gonna present some challenges. If we were just building a race car where we could just dump the gates to atmosphere, no problem. But because the EPA has been cracking down more and more on emissions, and here in our home province of Ontario, there's been a lot of crackdown on turbo cars too, with any kind of modifications to the exhaust system, which is why we put that G-Sport cat on the black Supra, and we will be putting a cat on this car too. We really have to recirculate these gates if I want to drive this car legally on the street, which I want to do because it's a Supra and it's something you want to kind of like be seen in and have a little bit of fun on the street. And I don't want to be driving it, puckering my butt cheeks the whole time, worried about the cops pulling me over and finding out that I'm not emissions legal. So, man, Pete and I have taken a good long look at this and we're really struggling figuring out how we can recirculate this front wastegate. It's just, there's no room to come over the top or around the bottom. It's just going to be very, very difficult. So we're gonna have to really maybe chat with Aaron and Greg Moore at Vibrant and see what they recommend, and maybe we'll have to plan B it. I mean, this might be a case of this manifold really being true to the name, full race. This may be a racing manifold and I'm building a street car, so we may have to change it up, but I'm still super impressed by how it all fits in here, and the sound that you get out of a tubular manifold at high RPM is a really beautiful thing, and I'll be bummed if we don't get to experience that on this build, but if we don't, we have got other 2Js on the shelf over there. We'll build a 2J drag car. We gotta go to drag week someday, PT, and maybe this is the manifold for something like that, but in any case, we're really struggling with how to recirculate this, so we're gonna have to go back to the drawing board on that a little bit, do some thinking, and figure out where to go from here. If you're building an A80 Supra, I think you want the most iconic exhaust you can get on it, and for me, that means an HKS exhaust system. And to source this, we went to Turn 14 Distribution, who just happened to be one of the biggest HKS distributors in North America. They had this bad boy in stock, and as you can see, this is their high-powered carbon tie exhaust. Carbon for the muffler, tie for the tip. That's a 120 mil tip, everyone. I don't know if you can handle that much tip, but that's 4 3/4 inches.
She's gonna sound good.
And 3 3/4 inch or 95 mil piping, so lots of exhaust side flow. And we obviously need to bolt this up so that Aaron and Greg from Vibrant know where to build the downpipe too. So we'll hang this from the chassis so that they have this in the correct location. And man, I'm stoked to see this on the car. I mean, obviously we could have gotten a custom exhaust made or done something a little bit different, but to me, with a JDM Legend like this, you really want a legendary Japanese brand for your exhaust because it just gives it that like distinctive Japanese tuner car sound. So super pumped to hear what this sound like on the car. Not gonna hear it today, but we will hear it sooner or later, and that'll be a very happy day in my life. Look at that, PT. That thing is a work of art.
Oh, it looks so good. Just like perfection on this car.
I don't know why, but there's something about a HKS exhaust system that just makes me a little bit giddy.
And DP, we should mention that there will be more carbon coming in the rear.
There will be. A lot of carbon everywhere,
actually. It's gonna be a surprise.
There's some killer stuff coming. I'm so pumped to see how this all looks once it's all together. We've got a ton of work to do before we get there, but man, even just seeing this on the car, it's kind of giving me goosebumps right now. That's how childlike I'm becoming just from seeing this on here. Man, I don't know if it's that sexy exhaust system or all these turbo parts, but my glasses are steaming up in here. It's getting a little hot and sweaty, but in any case, I hope you guys have enjoyed all these hard parts. It's always fun showing off sexy new performance parts. And we are still struggling though with how to deal with this recirculation of the wastegates issue. So we wanted to ask you guys, particularly anybody out there with an A80 Supra who's running a twin scroll manifold, what are you doing? Are you just dumping, or have you found a way to recirculate? And if you have, did that work well for you? Or did you find that you have to go to a single scroll single wastegate setup? Do you have to go to a more compact manifold design? We'd really like to hear from you guys about what the right solution might be, because we're still kind of scratching our heads about how to figure this one out. But in the meantime, we hope you enjoyed this episode. We do have lots more A80 Supra content coming at you. The black car's off getting wrapped. This car needs a few more pieces put back on it before it goes to Vibrant, then we'll show you what's going on there. Thanks again for watching, everyone, and we'll see you in the next one.
And I think over here, I don't necessarily want to like flatten these out, but I think like rotating them up certainly works really nicely. So I'm just gonna go like that. There you go. That one's